In 2015, the Small Reach Regatta returned to its birthplace in Brooklyn, Maine, for its 10th year. I'm Tom Jackson, senior editor of WoodenBoat. All those years ago, I was inspired by my participation in Raid Sweden to start an independent small craft adventure in Maine. I was also inspired by the success of Brooklyn's famous wooden yacht race, the Small Reach Regatta. The acquaintances I contacted back then have since become good friends, and almost all have returned year after year. We've explored the waters around Brooklyn and elsewhere on this coast. Great friendships have been made on the water and around the campfire, and for many, the SRR is a highlight of the summer. Here we'll have some of them tell their own stories. Jack Silverio of Lincolnville, Maine, is a past president of the Down East TSCA. He and his wife, Susan, sail a Joel White-designed Shearwater 18 named Ocarina and have participated in all 10 SRRs.
In 2005, Tom Jackson came back from a European raid where he was very inspired to start something like that here. We did a little investigatory sail. About 6 boats went out. And we decided to change the format of the raid. The raid was usually a race from island to island, but we determined that it would be better for us to have a base camp and venture out on day trips. So that was the beginning of the Small Reach Regatta. One of the things I thought I'd mention is how these boats are patterned after fishing boats and the dories and the pea pods and longboats, whale boats. These were working boats, and these are patterned after them. They're sort of modern versions of them. But those boats often went out together in a group, a fleet, to do fishing, either to haul traps, set lines, nets, etc. And they would often go out from those fishing communities, coastal communities, all around the world, and would come back in the afternoon. And so it's part of the heritage of traditional small craft to go out together. And I think it's a point that should be kept in mind, that small fleets are a very common thing, both for safety, trading ideas, helping each other launch and retrieve. And so these boats are ideal for that sort of thing. Venturing out on your own in a craft of this size can be pretty hair-raising, and you could be taking some chances, but there's a great deal more confidence when you're part of a fleet.
Boat designer Antonio Diaz of Narragansett, Rhode Island, developed a 17-foot 6-inch Harrier for SRR regular Ben Fuller of Cushing, Maine, but Ben usually uses one of his other boats so that Tony can take Rantan's helm for the SRR.
This is an apprentice shop built boat.
Right. I designed the boat for Ben, and of course his connection with the apprentice shop, he wanted it built there, it was a departure for them because this is a glued lap boat, really. But it's we kind of met halfway. My interest is boats, a trailerable boat that when you're inside of it in the water is as traditional as possible. So even though this is glued lap, it has steam bent ribs and is riveted together, and then which then allows you to have an actual rail and all of that. And it was traditionally enough, I guess, for the apprentice shop to go ahead with it.
Scottish boat designer Ian Uhtred's boats are well represented at the SRR with 8 of his popular Caledonia yawls this year. Another of his is his Ness yawl, a boat which Ed Story of New Hampton, New Hampshire, finished out after winning by lottery the unfinished boat in his wooden boat school class.
So my name's Ed Story, and about 4 years ago I took a class at the Wooden Boat School. And in the class we had everyone from a 14-year-old kid on up to people that have retired, and I was obviously on the younger end of the spectrum. And the class, it runs, it's a 2-week class. The first week you pretty much you work on planking the boat, so you start with just the frames, and then you plank it, working up from the garboard all the way up. And in the second week we roll the boat over, and that's when we could start putting in the in-whales, the out-whales, start working on some of the interior with the centerboard, the rudders, and the spars. And it's kind of funny because in the second week everybody's like whispering like, hey, who's interested in the boat? Are you interested? Are you interested? And everyone tries to be very nonchalant about it. And as it turned out, in the class that I was in, everyone was from out of state. And so being local over in New Hampshire, I was the only one that really wanted it and had the means to easily take it home. So I was a lottery of 1. And the last day of the class, we have the lottery drawing, which I was lucky enough to be the lucky winner. And I took home the, partially completed hull. And so that was probably in September that I took it home. So I took the boat home, and in the fall, being in New Hampshire, it gets cold, so in the fall I realized I needed to pretty much stand the hull down and get it coated with epoxy before the winter came, because once winter came I couldn't work on it. And I barely got it done. In November I put the tarps on it, and then over the winter I had worked on the interior, building the seats and finishing up the masts and the different parts for the sails and then the oars. And then the spring came, took the tarps off, finished sanding, painted it, put the interior in, did all the varnish work, and had the boat in the water for the 4th of July. So less than a year after the class, I had the boat in the water and I was sailing. And one of the first trips I took with it was actually to the Small Reach Regatta in 2013, when we were over on Hog Island. So I literally gotten the sails on it, and then 2 weeks later I was sailing up here in Maine with it.
Not all SRR participants are sailors. Alan and Lynn Head of Concord, New Hampshire, for example, always row boats of Alan's design and construction. Meanwhile, Steve and Peggy Wall of Pembroke, Massachusetts, are regulars with their Atlantic 17 gunning dory.
And you built that boat, as I recall,
For this event.
for this event.
Yes.
And did you build your boat too?
Yeah, my wife and I built our boat as well.
And what is this design?
This is the Atlantic 17. It's a gunning dory. Mm-hmm. Well, we found that the double-ended rowing boat works great for most things. We started out in a canoe and moved into a gunning dory that was smaller than this, that only one of us could row at a time. And we row year-round, and when it gets cold, one person can't stay warm. So my wife said, look, we can close in the porch and build a double. So that got us into a double, and it's the boat is not very heavy, and so we're able to portage it ourselves, so we don't necessarily need to leave it at anchor. And it's a boat that's good in waters like these, because we're not really out in open ocean. We're in protected bays for the most part. So rowing with the sailing fleet has been a real pleasure, because it's always been something special to see all these classic boats together and the variety of them.
It's nice to watch them behind us.
If you would just hold on and give me some time.